How's it going, YouTube? Coincidence today with another video, and today, guys, the brand new is going to be a really important video, honestly. I've been seeing some pretty interesting debates, and I want to just speak on these, and I hope other YouTubers do as well, because, like, I'm not a fan of what I'm seeing right now. The ones about Ash Blossom, the other one's about if your tops actually count if it's not top 8, and then the last one is just kind of like a end of video conversation, which is Exodia and Genesis, and how that even spilled over to Twitter. So we'll talk about a lot today. So if you haven't already checked out my sponsors over on Gem, Cloud, Arla, Imperium, Dragonshield, RW, MainPhaze, and Grimoire, definitely go ahead and do so. Also, if you haven't already and you want to check out any coaching, definitely go over to my METAFY to get some one-on-one. And then last but not least, subscribe to the channel so we can hit our goal at 30,000. Now, let's have a very long-winded talk about what's going on in the game. First one is, are we so for real right now? Do we really have to sit here and talk about how people think that Ashe needs to be banned? Like, we don't even really need to entertain this. I made a poll on my community tab. 2,400 of you voted. 81% said absolutely not. No reason for this. In my opinion, I think, like, one of the most heinous arguments I've ever heard is that the Charmies need to resolve. The Charmies should be banned because the Charmies equal Max C. 100%, I don't care, argue with the wall. Double Fua is worse than getting Maxied. If you get Fua Perulia'd and you have to play into it, I don't think that people right now realize giving anyone 2 draws, like let's say they drop like a Fua, right? You give them 2 draws, they're starting with 7. That's rough. The amount of decks right now playing multi-engine and they have multiple pushes into you, especially now with like DMod. And then they draw into, like, their breaker, right? They draw a Lightning Storm, they draw a Droplet, they draw, I don't know, like a Crown, right? It's so hard to want to keep playing, right? Because, like, at that point, you have to stop early and then not put up the best board that you can, right? And, like, a half board's important in most decks right now. Like, you need to be able to put up a half board. But a lot of times, it just feels like if you stop, you're just gonna lose, right? And that sucks. Because, like, if you give your opponent, in today's game, 2 draws, it feels like you might have already lost. Now, like, there's a chance that they don't really draw into a whole lot. But it's also scarier if your opponent doesn't further interact with you besides the Charmy because you know that there's a breaker in the hand, and it's going to be really hard to keep trying to, like, play through their attempt to play through your board, right? So, in multiple ways, I feel like the Charmies should have been deleted out of the game already. I really was pushing for these to get, like, semi-limited at least. I don't think that they're very healthy for the game. I think that you can activate 2 in a turn is ridiculous. Yes, they're going second cards, but, like, I really like the direction that they were taking the Dominus cards, right? Like, I'm still waiting on, like, Dominus Red Reboot, right? Like, lock you out of certain attributes, you stop 1 trap, and then they get to, like, set a new one, right? I think that's cool, and it's only if you control no cards. Same with, like, Droll. I think Droll is fine, but, like, Dominus Droll would be kind of gas. I'm not gonna lie, that'd be kind of cool, right? And potentially, if they had, like, an attribute restriction and they did, like, a Dominus Fua, maybe I wouldn't be so mad about it. But, like, the fact that you can just, like, draw multiple Charmies and then you can side into, like, the better one for that matchup, trying to play something like Malice into Meowls was terrible. Right? Now, there are situations where you can actually just, like, play around a Charmy completely, especially if they, like, Perulia you and you open, like, Underground, right? And you're fine. But, like, a lot of times having to stop super early also promotes heavy floodgate use, right? So, like, if your opponent's siding into, like, D-grounds and whatnot because you foo with them, now you're gonna get turn skipped, right? And that could happen regardless. But, like, if you're worried about getting fooed super crazy in a tournament, right? You're just going to force people to start wanting to play Go First Floodgates harder because they don't want to just auto-lose. They want to turn skip you now, and then the game turns into turn skip. Even though it's kind of where it has been, this is like a way worse way to go about it. And for me to hear so many, and this is like realistically just on Twitter, but like hearing people say ban Ashe is like the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. Because like Ashe also stops a lot of really crazy things from happening in the game. And especially like some of the best cards that give your opponent, like, crazy pushes. Like, could you imagine a way to play Yummy format without Ashe and you couldn't Ashe Obedience School? Better draw a Rock, right? Like, and if you don't draw Rock, you're probably losing. The other issue is let's say we do ban Ash, right? Let's say Ash goes to 0. Ban Ash, right? Either we just pivot to the next thing that stops Charmies, right? And we just go really crazy with that card. Or we ban Ash, and all of a sudden we have to look for the next card to ban, right? Because Ash is too broken, which it's not. Shocker, right? It's not. But, like, let's say you want to ban Ash, it gets banned. You're like, alright, Nibiru is now gone. We need to ban Nibiru, right? Like, there's got to be a way for people to realize, like, there are some cards that are just fine to have in the game, right? And then there's this other side of cards that are just actually broken. Scythe, Shifter, D-Ground, Die-Fly, D-Barrier, like, cards that should have been dealt with a long time ago, right? Cards that promote interaction like Ash need to be in the game. Because if you don't want interaction in your game, go play like Pokemon, right? Your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn. That's not what Yu-Gi-Oh! Is. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is our turn constantly. And especially with cards like Hovness is what started it. Then we had Azuna, and we have Hand Traps, and we just have so many cards that just play on both turns. That's what makes Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! And getting rid of things that are very interactive with your opponent. Could you imagine a turn where you didn't have to stay engaged the whole turn because your opponent could just freely do whatever they want, especially in Yu-Gi-Oh? Could you imagine letting your opponent do whatever they want in their turn in Yu-Gi-Oh? That'd be terrible. That'd be actually terrifying. Because most cards, like Tour Guide alone, right? Like, let's just go way old school. Do you know the amount of things that Tour Guide can just, like, put up on a board? But, like, it gets checked, right? Valor, Ash, you have Imperm, you have, for later on in the combo, right, like, you have things like Purge. If you wanted to impulse it right away, you could impulse it. Like, there are so many cards that check everything that comes out. And that's the problem with formats like Genesis, right? There are new cards that get printed, and all of a sudden there are near 100% FTKs and things like Exodia, because there's not enough checks, right? Droll just got put up in points, which was arguably the worst possible thing for that format. Because when things like this break out, it can't get checked at least one round by getting drolled twice, right? Instead, they're just like, I'm going to draw as many cards as I want to draw, and I'm going to show you Exodia. And this is why checks and balances in the game should belong. And that's something where interaction in the form of hand traps and negation need to be there. Because if they're not, you start running into situations like this, which spilled into Twitter and created a whole thing. And it's because people are upset that people are actively abusing this deck. And which, to me, I'm just like, bro, if it's legal, play it. Like, I hate Shifter. If you ask anybody in my Yu-Gi-Oh! Community how much I love Shifter, you're going to get the same answer. He wants to rip up every copy in existence, right? That's true. I hate Shifter as a card. I think it's horrendous, and I don't know how it ever went through the R&D, right? I don't know how that ever went through. But at the same point, if I wanted to do the best that I possibly could in tournaments, I played 3 of that in my main deck, right? And just because I absolutely hate a card doesn't mean that I'm not just going to play them because they're legal, right? And if they're legal, and that's the same thing I said in videos. I said, listen, it's broken, I hate it, but, like, you should play it while it's legal, because it gives you the best opportunity to win, right? And it's the same thing right now with Exodia Genesis format, which is, like, unironically a very big problem, right? And that's because people are playing the cards that are really good, right? And that's not really a new concept to Yu-Gi-Oh! But if it's around, you should play it. But right now, there's very limited checks and balances that this format has because of the point system. And it's really hard to get a bunch of hand traps and a bunch of whatever other engine you want to play in the same scenario, right? So it's a very hard to figure out a format right now. But, I mean, they're just going to have to start putting points onto, like, just about everything just to make sure that things like this don't happen. But, I mean, right now it's pretty miserable from what I hear. Right now, if we're ever going to get, like, a emergency points limit, that's yet to be seen, right? But as far as I know right now, this is a big issue for those who play Genesis. I do not, so I'm not really too worried about this. But to go back, checks and balances are really important to Yu-Gi-Oh! And I think that's why I love this game so much, is because of the amount of interactions. Now, I've had conversations with people about their choice bringing a deck to like a YCS, and a lot of people choose to play decks with way less interaction so their brain doesn't get fried throughout the 15, 16 rounds throughout the day, right? But like, I have never played another game in my entire life where when I bring a deck like Tournament, which requires so much thought, right, to a big event, and I walk out with my brain fried from all the decision trees I had to go through all day, you'll never get that from a different game. And now, whether you look at that as a positive or a negative, I think that's such a unique experience to really be able to put so much thought into a game and really just have fun, right? And, you know, fun is really subjective to however you have fun in the game, right? And I always want to make sure that we are being as inclusive as possible in this game in any means necessary. Now, yes, this is a great segue into my next topic, but that doesn't negate the fact. Now, I've been seeing a lot of discourse, like even more discourse on your tops don't matter. If you're not in top 8, by definition, your top doesn't matter. You got 16th, oh well, it doesn't matter. Now, that's not necessarily my view, this just is the one that I've been seeing, and I think it's kind of gross, you know, like, if you go to a YCS, there is, what, let's just say 2,800 players, right? You get 12th. Now, by Konami's definition, did you get top 8? Like, did you actually, like, top in Konami's will of definition of topping? No. But, does that downplay that you just crushed your way all the way to 12th place? Absolutely not. That's a fantastic achievement. And, you know, I don't think that saying even, like, top in front of it, like, top 12, right, is, like, necessarily a bad thing. I know that a lot of people say that, like, oh, but it's only a top if you, like, top 8. Even before, like, people really didn't feel the same way, like, even before this update, that, like, if you, like, top 64 in an event, right, like, it was that crazy necessarily because you didn't, like, top 8 or you didn't top 4 and get, like, a prize card, right? It was still, like, the same thought process that it is now. And it's kind of gross to see it because, like, let me be the first to tell you, if you haven't already heard, if you go to a massive event and you even top 32, right? Even if they don't count it as, like, a top whatever now, it's only, like, top 8 to Konami, top 32 is okay in my book, right? Like, you did a fantastic job. You went, you did it, and you should be proud, right? This game is complicated. You know what I was just talking about 5 minutes ago? About how you can leave a tournament with your brain fried? This game is complicated, okay? And we're not getting as many new players as other games do because of this mentality. It's a problem. And I know a lot of people that have commented on my videos lately, or like mentioned on Twitter, that I seem a little bit more like off-put or like more like mad about things lately. It's, a lot of it too is just like a reflection of like what is going on in the community. And I've always loved to be like a very happy-go-lucky, very like, hey, let's get down to business on like what the format is and like what we're doing and like what the cards are and like where are the important interactions and whatnot. But it's important to take a moment to really put aside our differences and look at the game as a whole, right? We don't want this game to die. Whether you're a casual, whether you're hyper competitive, whether you're somewhere in between, we all love this game for what it offers, right? I think that it is horrendous to downplay someone's achievement from getting like top 32, even if it's not like Konami recognized. Like, yes, you still get like a pack and you still get a mat, and they only recognize like top 8 now, which I think was a really weird move by Konami anyways. But like, if somebody wants to tell you that they got top 32 and it was a massive event, it was a YCS, they played their heart out, now they're playing 15 rounds, right? They made it through into day 2, they did a deep run. Dude, I'm proud of you, right? I'll be the first to tell you, I'm proud of you. And, you know, I think that we need to come together more as a community and recognize achievements more than putting each other down. And that's a really big deal. And, You know, when I got my first regional top, I got like 6th. That was the most incredible feeling in the world, bro. That was incredible. And then when I did my first back-to-back regional top weekend, oh, you could not take that feeling away from me. You know, you couldn't. So, especially having someone, let's say it was their first top they ever got, right? And they ended up getting like top 32 and they're like super proud. And you walk over and you go, wasn't top 8. You could have just shattered their whole day, their whole view of the game, right? Let's not do that. And, you know, if people have a problem with that, you know, they can come comment on this video and I'll talk to them. That's fine. But I'm not here to be putting people down on their achievements because that is not great. And, you know, it's crazy. I heard this quote before about remote duels too, because that was the biggest thing, right? It was remote duels before it was this conversation about like if your tops matter for like top 32, now that's top 8. And the whole thing was remote duel tops don't matter unless they're your tops, which is like a crazy sentence, but like I get it where they're coming from, but like at the same time, man, like if people are proud of something that they did, just let them be proud and tell them congrats, right? And I know it's not always happy-go-lucky in the community, but like we need to do better, right? And I'm just saying this heart to heart to y'all. And, you know, this is something that I see constantly and I hate it. We need to do better. We need to be able to lift each other up and move together as a community to not let this game die. I love this game. I'm probably going to play it for another 10, 15 years, however long, whatever. And keep enjoying the game for what it is, right? So, at the end of the day, your tops and your achievements do matter. So, take that with you. And don't let anyone take that from you. Definitely go and check out my Twitter, Twitch, Discord, Instagram. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I'll catch you all next video. Thank you.